Okay, let's dive right into this. We're going to tackle a really big but super important topic, propaganda. You hear that word thrown around all the time, right? And it always has this kind of mysterious, powerful vibe to it. But what if we could just pull back the curtain and see it for what it actually is? Not magic, but a set of tools.
And that's really the big question we're asking here. Is propaganda some kind of dark art, this evil magic that takes over our minds? Or is it something a lot more straightforward? A set of communication techniques that, once you understand them, you can actually start to spot and, more importantly, defend yourself against.
So, here's our game plan. We're going to move from the left side of your screen to the right. We're going to trade in all those vague, scary words like mind control for clear, analytical terms, things like framing, simplification, and repetition. Because once you can break it down, once you can see the nuts and bolts, it starts to lose its power.
So if you really want to understand a technique, where do you go? You go straight to the instruction manual, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to analyze the how by looking at a primary source that literally wrote the playbook.
Now, before we go any further, I need to be absolutely crystal clear about something, because this is crucial. We are doing a technical analysis. We're looking at the mechanisms of communication. We are not making direct historical or political comparisons. Think of it like this. We're studying the hammer, not the carpenter.
And that instruction manual? It's a text from 1936. So why this specific one? Well, because it's an incredibly blunt document that lays it all out. It describes propaganda not as a way to inform people, but as a tool, a weapon even, designed specifically to shape attitudes and get huge groups of people to act. It lets us look right under the hood.
All right, so let's open up this toolkit. Based on what's in that primary source, we can boil the whole strategy down to 4 basic tools of persuasion. And once you learn these 4, you'll start to see them everywhere.
First up, audience targeting. The core principle here is simple. Aim for the heart, not the head. This technique is designed to completely bypass all the messy facts and rational arguments and instead plug directly into our raw emotions and our sense of who we are as a group. It's all about making you feel something.
Next, we have simplification. You know, the world is incredibly complicated, right? It's messy, it's full of nuance. Well, this tool takes a giant pair of scissors to all of that. It boils down massive, complex issues into a super simple black and white story. There's an us and a them, a good guy and a bad guy. Zero room for gray area.
Now, this third tool is fascinating because it hacks our own psychology. It's repetition. You take that simple message you just created and you repeat it over and over and over again. This taps into something called the illusory truth effect, which is a fancy way of saying our brains tend to mistake familiarity for truth. If you hear something enough times, it just starts to feel true, like common sense.
And the final tool, the one that kind of ties it all together, is enemy construction. Honestly, there's nothing that unites a group of people faster than giving them a common enemy. This technique creates an other, a target for everyone's fear and anger. It creates a really powerful us by defining a them for us to rally against.
Okay, so we've got our 4 tools, but are they just dusty old ideas or do they still show up today? Let's take a look at a modern case study. And just to say it one more time, our goal here is media literacy. We're only identifying the communication techniques, not equating anything else.
You know, this point is so critical to what we're doing here that it's worth putting it right back on the screen. We are looking only at the communication mechanisms themselves, completely separate from any specific person, party, or outcome.
So, our source material points to analysis of modern political rhetoric about migration. For instance, analysts have documented how certain phrases map directly onto the tools we've been discussing. A recurring phrase used over and over, well, that's a clear use of repetition. Taking the incredibly complex issue of migration and boiling it down to one word, like invasion, that's classic simplification. And using certain language to frame a group of people, that is a textbook example of enemy construction. So, here's the most important part. Once you can spot the tools, you can start to build a defense. And this isn't about being cynical, not at all. It's about being a critical, empowered thinker. The question is, how do you actually do it?
It comes down to 3 basic steps. First, just explain the mechanism. Call it what it is. See it as a simple technique, not some kind of spell. Second, and this is a big one, when you're correcting misinformation, don't repeat the myth. All that does is reinforce it in people's minds. Instead, put all your energy into repeating the actual truth. And third, you have to actively train your own brain to look for these tools in everything you consume.
This means getting in the habit of just pausing for a second.
and asking yourself a few key questions. The next time a message really gets a rise out of you, just stop and ask, okay, what's being way oversimplified here? Who's being set up as the bad guy? And what exact emotion is this piece of content trying to make me feel right now?
Because really, it all boils down to this one simple idea. You can't defend against a technique you can't see. Awareness, just knowing the playbook exists, is the single most powerful first step you can take.
And that leaves us with just one final important question that I want you to take with you.
So think about this. If a piece of communication is working overtime to make you feel something really strong, whether it's anger or fear or even pride, what might that message be distracting you from? What details, what inconvenient facts are being left out of the picture to make room for all that emotion? And why? That's the critical question.